Hello and welcome to the Tips with Toni podcast. I'm Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. I am so excited for this next guest. I say this on everyone, but I think people can hear it in the accentuation of my voice right now. My friend Tracy is here. She is an Enneagram expert. And if you don't know what that is, she is going to explain it. And she helps people understand who they are so that they can grow and develop into the people that they are meant to be. And I'm so excited to have her. I'm going to have her introduce herself. Tracy, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Your energy is contagious. So thanks for
Ah,
having me.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So, Tracy, the first question I always ask, it's a three-part question. Please introduce yourself by sharing who you are, what you do, and most importantly, why you do what you do.
Oh my gosh. I am Tracy O'Malley. And yes, I am an Enneagram expert and I'm constantly learning. I'm knocking on 50's door, like a few months away, which is scary as hell.
You would
It's
never know, guys. If you're, you only
yeah.
hear the audio, but if you're watching this, if you watch on YouTube, you would never know.
Oh, thank you. I am a mom to a 23 and a 24-year-old. I've been a single mom for 14 years, the sole provider emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially for them. So I've had to be kind of gritty along the way. I've only been in the coaching space and personal development field as a professional for 10 years. So you do the math. Been divorced for 14 as a single mom. The first 4 years of that was a shit show, quite honestly. And what I do is, I'm a performance coach. If you are being held back by yourself, by circumstances, whatever, because we usually talk to an old version of ourselves, right? And a little over a decade ago, I'm an Enneagram 8. I'm an Aries. I'm Irish. Like, I'm stubborn as hell. I'm very intense. And that got me through growing up in a hard situation. Like, those very things that kept us safe, certain, significant, secure as children, depending on your environment, that's great. But usually when we carry that into adulthood, it ends up sabotaging us. And then the shame spirals come. And that's where I was 10 years ago. I was all the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was freaking angry as hell, bitter. Like, it was a icky divorce. It was humiliating. I was resentful because I was the sole provider. I was so pissed off. And even when I was smiling through it, your energy doesn't lie. And it was then that my dad was diagnosed with cancer. 12 days later, he was gone. It was that fast.
Oh, just like
Um,
goosebumps. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
And I had just turned 40 years old. I was like looking at my life, like, is this all there is? Like, he was the strongest person I'd ever known. And 12 days, like, life turned on a dime, right? And I knew that if I wanted something different, it was going to require something different from me. Even though I can get shit done and make things happen, I felt soulless. I was neck down dead. I was angry. I couldn't sustain this much longer, quite honestly. And I know a lot of you listening right now may be in that same spot. And it was this catalyst of like, oh shit, I have a lot of life left to live. And if I continue at this pace, my kids are going to be bearing me sooner than they should have to too. That being said, my kids were teenagers at the time. They were 14 and 15. And I started to see patterns in them that were very familiar to patterns that I had that I didn't want to pass on. People that we lead or love will do what we do, not what we say to do. And
Mm-hmm.
even though I was talking a good game, I wasn't walking it. And I did not want my kids to carry on some unhealthy patterns that I had, that I have been, carrying from a generation or two before me. And just like I said, if you want something different, it's going to require something different. And so I took my entire life down to the foundation. I wiped out every single person in my life except those two kids. A lot of my family were, also part of the thing, and we can love our family and distance ourselves from them. And sometimes it's required, and I'm sure we'll get into like that a lot around, our habits and our patterns, how we cope.
Yes.
I was being tag teamed by dual eating disorders. I had an alcohol problem. I had an anger problem, a codependency problem. And a lot of the things that we manifest in behaviors that don't serve us anymore is really because we have a hard time coping.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of where this all started. I walked away from the career that I'd had for 15 years, taking my income also down to zero and starting coaching from scratch. I started in the health and wellness industry in a network marketing company and had another health crisis a few years later. And that turned into the secret to my success in anything is this work. Is this
Mm.
work? But it comes with first understanding who the heck you are. And when I checked myself into rehab for those, tag teaming me, eating disorders and the alcohol and the codependency, I put all the cards on the table and said, this is my coping mechanisms and they suck.
Mm.
And my therapist asked me to take the Enneagram test on my second day in rehab. And I told her to go, fly a kite. I'm like, no, I don't need another label. Clearly, I have plenty walking in here. And she's also an Enneagram 8 like me. And she's a straight shooter from Texas and tells it like it is, the way that I like it. And she said, my dear, quite honestly, your best thinking has gotten you here.
Mm.
And maybe this will allow you to get out of the box not only the world has put you in, but you've put yourself in. So how about we give it a shot? And I was like, well, touche, she's got a point. And so it was in understanding the Enneagram in those very early days, 10 years ago, that it made a lot of sense. I mean, I was very clear about the crap I was doing that wasn't working. However, I wasn't changing it for whatever reason. And what you don't understand sometimes is we can change the behaviors, but if we don't pull it up by the root of why we do those behaviors, it's just going to keep catching up to us, or it's going to show up the same package, but just in different wrapping paper. And I was
Wow.
tired of that. At 40 years old, I was so tired of that shit. And so, really unpacking the Enneagram 8 in me, instead of looking to myself and beating myself up like I had for as long as I did for 4 decades, all of a sudden it allowed me to have a little more compassion for myself. Because at the root of each Enneagram type is this fear and vulnerability that we will die to protect at all costs. And it really allowed me to stay in recovery. I mean, I've got almost 10 years of sobriety under my belt at this point. And
Yeah.
and honestly, it has everything to do with understanding myself in a way with some framework and a roadmap that isn't so complicated. I think when we go to explore personal development and especially personal growth and we start unpacking stuff, a lot of us just shut the door because it's like, this is going to get messy. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to disrupt my life too much. So we just say, screw it, just give me strategy. But you got to have the soul with the strategy. Otherwise, we're kicking the can down the street. And so 10 years ago, I just grabbed onto it and used the framework, and I built, that income from zero to $1 million in 2 years' time,
Yes, girl.
which was freaking crazy. I have an organization in my network marketing business, which I had no social network, if you remember part of the story, where I got rid
Yeah.
of everybody, built a network
Yeah.
marketing business that's over 110,000 people strong today,
Amazing.
and have coached thousands and thousands of people around the Enneagram and leadership specifically in their homes and in their businesses and in themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been so powerful to really help people unpack what this really is for them so that they don't have to pass on things that don't serve them anymore. They can stand up in their businesses and in their healthy bodies saying, this is who I am and I'm damn proud of it. Even if
Yes.
they should slip a little bit or live life outside of a box, right? And so I'm so passionate. And the reason why I do this today is because 22 years ago, when I knew that I was in trouble, I did not have the tools to stop these patterns. And 22 years ago, I walked into a recovery program, and it was revealed to me very clearly, like, if we don't repair this, we repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any, family that went first. So I had to go first, and it was messy and it was terrible at times and very, vulnerable. But the reason I wake up every day fired up to do this is because I would have died for me 22 years ago to say, hey, little lady, I got your back. I've been there. It's going to be okay. It's going to get messy, but you're not in this alone. I would have
Mm-hmm.
died for that. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I show up every day, fired the hell up to help people every day so they don't have to, destroy or take their life to ground zero like I did to finally get it. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't recommend that.
Yeah, you don't have to. I love that. Repair it or repeat it. Oh my God. That you had so many great nuggets there. I honestly, we're not ending, guys. Don't worry, but we could totally have ended the podcast right there and people had walked away with so much value. I honestly, if you guys, you be grateful this is free because I just feel like we just paid like a lot of money to just hear that. Like, that was just incredible. That was incredible. You're incredible. I'm so excited. Okay.
Oh, we're just getting started,
Yeah,
sister.
we're just getting started. So, well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing everything that you just did, and congratulations. I know you know this, but we're going to celebrate every day of sobriety since you achieved it, and it's just so awesome, like so awesome. So, yeah, amazing. I'm so excited to have you here. Let's get into because we use Enneagram a lot, right? So let's get into what is the Enneagram, because I feel like a lot of people who are listening probably don't know, and that's okay. And also, I know of it because I read one book about it, but I still don't know enough about it,
You drink the Kool-Aid. Yes. And that's the thing with the Enneagram is you drink the Kool-Aid. And sometimes when we read a book or we see something about it, we feel seen, heard, and understood for maybe the first time in our life. And it's like people are craving that, right? And that's why using this in a very integrity-filled way, I'm able to help people move the needle, because even if they've never met me before or have just listened to a podcast or have followed some of my content and we have a conversation, they're like, oh my God, in 5 minutes, I feel like you know me better than anybody in my life. And that builds a lot of credibility and trust, right? In business and in our homes. As a parent, oh my gosh, like having credibility and trust in my home is everything to me. But the Enneagram is a weird word. I was like, the Ennea, what the hell is that? And the reason it is that it's like Ennea and gram is a combination of words that mean a diagram with 9 components, right? Which is what the Enneagram is. There's 9 basic personality types. And yes, we all fall into one of these categories. Now, within those 9 types, they're categorized into 3 different compartments, I like to say. And these compartments are called the center of intelligence, right? And we use all of them, but usually one dominates. We have the body center, which is the action. We take action. We are motivated and make decisions and communicate based on instincts, right, in our body. And those are the 8s, 9s, and 1s. The heart center of intelligence, they make decisions, communicate based on feelings, right? And they're driven by significance. The body triad, they're driven by truth and justice, right? The 8s, justice for the vulnerable. 9s for the justice and peace for the collective. And 1s, truth, right or wrong, black and white. They're the integrity police. I call them the sheriffs, right? So in the feeling center of intelligence are the 2s, 3s, and 4s. And again, they're driven by significance, right? And so the 2s feel significant when they are of service to others. Everything that they do is driven by other people. The 3s are driven by significance in what they do, how they appear, what they achieve, right? And how people might perceive them. And the 4s are driven by significance internally. Like they're always seeking that authentic, vulnerable self, and it can be quite the journey for them, right? In the head center of intelligence has the 5, the 6, and the 7. They are driven by a need for certainty and safety. And so they're in the head a lot. The brain gets spinning. So the 5s need certainty that they're equipped and capable of things. They need to know that their resources are protected, right? So sometimes they're hoarding their stuff. They're the most introverted on the Enneagram. The 6s need certainty and safety, that they need to know they're going to be supported and they're not going to be blindsided. So they're like the master troubleshooters. And the 7s need certainty that they're not going to ever be stuck in a situation that doesn't excite them. They're the innovators, the big stupid idea, anything's possible kind of people. And their underlying emotion is kind of like anxiety. They're always thinking into the future and worst case scenario, where the 2s, 3s, and 4s are thinking in the past, like what has happened in the past, and how can I prevent that moving forward? And so they can kind of go into shame. Shame is focusing on things in the past. Anxiety is focusing on things in the future. And the 8, 9s, and 1, the body ones are what's happening right now.
Interesting.
Right now. So that's kind of a breakdown of it, but we use all of it. Right. But there's definitely one I know that you were listening is like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Well, it's hard because I think as you were sharing, of course, I think everyone was just doing this. I know I was like, I could see I had like parts of that and part that. Isn't it true that there's like, you have the main thing and then you have like your wings?
Oh, yes.
So it's like you have like parts of you that could be like a little bit like this and a little bit like that, right?
Yes, because you could have, I'm an 8, you could have 2 8s right in front of each other and they can appear very different. And I'll give you an example. And regardless of what you think about either one of these people, it's just for an example of how different they can appear. So Mother Teresa is an 8, right? Which you wouldn't think. If you know the Enneagram, you might think she's a 2 because she's so compassionate and empathetic and all that, but I'll get into that in a second. But she is a hardcore 8. Donald Trump is also an 8. They could not be more opposite the way that they express their 8-ness, right? And so your core type doesn't change, because if you reverse engineer what motivates everything you do, because I know some of you are thinking, well, when I'm in business, this motivates me. When I'm in this motivates me. And really, if we do the 6 degrees of separation and unpack and unpack and unpack, it comes down to one core motive. Because I was originally mistyped as a 3. I look very 3-like. I mean, even when I was explaining 0 to a million and all that, and you would think I would be very achiever-like, and I am, but I'm not motivated at all, not even a little bit, by significance, which is what a 3 is motivated by. I don't believe my worth is tied into how I appear, what I achieve, anything like that. However, I can look behaviorally like a 3 because at the root of my 8-ness is this fear of being put in a vulnerable situation or being betrayed and violated. So I will achieve when my back's up against the wall to not have to rely on anybody. So you see the total difference in motive, but behaviorally they can appear the same.
Totally.
So our core type doesn't change. I like to say it's like your main character. It's just like your astrology sign. Like I was born on April 3rd. I'm an Aries. That's not changing no matter what I do. But how that gets expressed can change, right? You've got rising signs and moon things and all the stuff in astrology based on the time you were born. Well, the Enneagram is kind of similar to that in a way. Your core type does not change. I definitely was born with a temperament and disposition, and so were you. Right. And this is how I love to explain this. That's why that book was called The Road Back to You, because we are born with, a calling, a temperament, a disposition. And I've carried 2 babies in my womb, and their temperament and disposition is very much who they are and their Enneagram type. Now, what happens is we're born with that, and then we're put into an environment. And even if it's a great environment, there's these unspoken unwritten rules that our child brain kind of picks up and starts a belief system wrapped around that. Right. And so because my core motive for everything is independence, no fear of being betrayed, violated, anything like that. That's who I am. And then I was put into an alcoholic home. And also with a mom that could not emotionally deal with any of it. And my dad was the alcoholic, and my sister was a shit show. And, so all of a sudden that temperament and disposition of myself starts to take on a new life, right? To stay safe, certain, or significant, right? I'm still an 8, but on the either side of us are these wings. So if you look at the diagram of the Enneagram, it's like a big circle of 9 numbers, right? And whatever numbers are on either side of you represent wings that you can use. Now, a lot of people think you only have one. Here's the deal. The goal is to be able to use both of them. It's just like if you're doing a DIY project, right? Having the right tools for the job makes shit a lot easier, right? Truth be told, my 8 tool, which is my main tool, the one that I could use in my sleep, it's like the screwdriver. We all know how to use a screwdriver. We don't need to go to YouTube to figure it out. We know that like the back of our hand. That is our main type, right? But my 8 tool, that screwdriver is very rarely the right tool for the job. It's not the most effective tool for the job. So on either side of me, I have a 7 and a 9, right? The 7, I can take on those characteristics like what's possible, fun, energized, innovative, anything, anything. There's nothing off the table. The 8 in me is like, whoa, 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 that's vulnerable. But the 7 wing is like, yeah, but this is the better tool for the job. Okay, great. On the other side of me is that 9 wing, which is the peacemaker. It's what is the bigger picture here? What's for the greatest good? What's the best that can happen? And my 8's like, whoa, 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 whoa. But the 9's like, trust me, this is the right tool for the job. So the goal is to be able to toggle between them. When I was growing up in that alcoholic home, I never used that 7 wing because having fun and open mind only got you hurt. Right. So I've had to learn how to use that, but you want to use all the tools right in your tool belt, and your wings are right there. They're like the supporting cast, right? They don't always get the glory, right? Like the main character does, but boy, that main character can't shine without the help of the supporting cast. And those are your wings. Yeah. Now there's 2 other numbers that come into play. So when I told you about Mother Teresa and how she's an 8, which they're known to be very domineering, aggressive, intense. That's not the words you think of when you think of Mother Teresa, right? Right. So each Enneagram type also has a growth number. When we are integrating our personal development and all this work that we go to courses and take events, or we go to events and, listen to podcasts and shelf help books and all of that, when we actually integrate this stuff, our type can move into another type. It doesn't mean we're going to be motivated by it, but we can take on these beautiful traits of this other type. And it's usually a stretch. And it's usually where we say things like, oh, that's not in alignment for me. Because we're scared as hell, because it's usually the opposite of what we use to protect our biggest vulnerability. So using the 8 and Mother Teresa for an example, that 8, which is that aggressive, domineering, protective challenger, which is the name of the 8, the 2, which is where she goes in growth at Mother Teresa 8, is the helper. Compassion and empathy. That is the opposite of what an 8 wants to do, but to grow so that these leadership skills and this protector thing can be used most effectively. You can't do that without compassion and empathy. Yes, you can get people to do what you want, but that's not leadership. Right. And so knowing your growth number will allow you to stop sabotaging yourself when you want to say things like that's not in alignment. I want to say things like that, especially when it means I have to be vulnerable or compassionate, because that being compassionate means I could be betrayed, right, and violated. So I have to work against that sometimes and push myself in that, knowing that this is the roadmap of my type and Mother Teresa's type. So that's why she looks very 2-like to most people. I can look very 2-like with compassion and empathy today, but it's not my natural go-to. I have to work at that every day. Now, the other number we can go to, and this was a huge thing that I learned about early in my stages of the Enneagram, was our stress number, or where we go when maybe the not so pretty parts of our type don't work anymore. So when my aggressive, bully-like, angry, explosive nature doesn't do it for me and doesn't resolve my anxiety or stress or worries, I start to look like a different number altogether. And so does each Enneagram type. And it's the opposite of aggressive and domineering. It's the 5, which is the most introverted on the Enneagram. And so using that framework and understanding where I go when it's extreme stress can allow me to pull out of it faster with compassion and empathy for myself. It's just a roadmap. It's just a compass. We don't have to keep emotionally completely annihilating ourselves when we just see the framework and the roadmap. It's not personal. Right. But we have to know how to take ourselves out of it.
Right. And I think it's like part of it is comforting to know like, oh, I'm understood. But the other part is not to use it as a crutch. And so it's like, Bingo. Oh, this is just who I am. So, oh, that makes sense. It's like, no, these are my tendencies and where I fall, but that doesn't mean at the end of the day, I get to choose. I think you just put something really awesome on Instagram about a choice, making choices. Yeah.
It's like the thing really I've said about that is you can't use this. Like if you're going to use the Enneagram, you have to use it with integrity. And it means not using it as a weapon. Because I would have, if I had known this information 15 years ago, I'd be like, screw you. I'm an 8. here's the deal. Or I wouldn't know how to tap into the other people. And you also can't use it as a wall saying, well, that's just the way that I am, or that's how I was raised, because guess what? That is a choice.
Yeah. So I have two questions that came up as you were talking. So the first is because you had mentioned we're kind of born a certain way, but then we live in certain circumstances or environments. And so I'll just share what I did when I read back to you. I thought I was a 9. And then I was also thinking about like this one, the 9's the peacemaker, but in the home, my home was very chaotic and I was the peacemaker in the home. And I just wonder if I grew up in a different home, if I would still be a 9. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so because like, and I never took a quiz. I just read the book and I'm like, oh, I think this is who I am. But like, are there quizzes? So it's like a 2-part question. Like one, like, does your environment make you believe you're one number when you're actually another? And then 2, because I know you've mentioned, I don't know if we were recording or not, but some quizzes you might be placed as with the wrong number, which like, what are valuable quizzes? Like, how do you know for sure?
Well, a lot of times I will say this, and I will address your 9 kind of thing, because in my home growing up, if you had seen me in my actual home, I looked very much like the peacemaker because it was so volatile and explosive that was the role that I chose. But put me out on a playground with people, I was all 8. So you can see, like, understanding that my 9 was my wing. So it just depends, like, what you're motivated by. It's not the behavior.
Right. I think I need to reread the book.
Well, you got me. You don't need to read the book.
Tracy. Yeah. I mean, like, if you want to, I don't know if you have time. Like,
well, and that's the thing. This is like, there's one of 2 ways to go about this. It's a self-discovery process, which means, I mean, you can't just plug answers into a quiz online and expect it to be accurate. Because there's so many factors. I mean, like you just said, you had trauma in your home and volatility and, your birth order, sex, all of these different things. And there's this part of the Enneagram that not a lot of people talk about, is our instinctual reactions to life. We're either self-preservation, where we're concerned about us first, like always, like, how is this going to affect me? Then there's like this one-on-one kind of instinctual reaction, which is where I fall, which like my very, very close inner circle, right? I'm always thinking about the people closest to me. And then there's the social instinctual reaction, like, how is this going to affect we, like the collective? And that can change the expression of your type altogether. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why people are mistyped, as well as trauma, because these online assessments don't take any of that into consideration. So what I usually say about the online assessments, and even the paid ones, I'm telling you right now, 65 to 70% of the time, your score is inaccurate. Usually it will come up either, depending on where you're at in life, even your personally developed self. It could be a wing, because we usually leaned into a wing to protect our other vulnerabilities.
Even when taking a quiz, I feel like as a natural people pleaser, as like someone who just like always wants to show up as the best, I would like lie. I feel like I just want to, on the quiz, I want to show up as like the best version of me.
If I had known what my therapist was telling me I was doing, I would have read all the types, determined which one I thought was the best. And then, a lot of times, like, we'll say, well, I've done so much work, or we'll talk from a personally developed sort of self, or somebody who knows I've learned all this, so I'm going to answer as though I've already done it, but we haven't actually integrated it. If you want to use the Enneagram, that's not going to serve you. Being typed properly is the first most important step. Otherwise, if you think about it, if this is a roadmap and framework for you to get back to your soul's calling, which is like that book, The Road Back to You, like, this is a roadmap to take you back to that, but with the wisdom of you today.
Right.
Like, I'm very much who I could have been as a kid had those life circumstances not happened. I'm more free spirited, I'm fun, like I'm more easygoing, but I have the wisdom of myself today. If I was mistyped, I'm using the roadmap and I'm going in a direction that isn't for me. And it's going to feel like a grind every day. And usually the type that we land on, when it's accurate, we go, ooh, okay. Because we see the truth that we've been hiding. When we get a quiz and we're like, yay, I'm this, that's probably not it.
Yeah.
So what I usually tell people with these online assessments, even the paid ones, I wouldn't do just like a 3-question. I would do one. There's one at the Enneagram Institute. It's $12. It's still going to be inaccurate 65 to 70% of the time. But the reason I'm telling you this is because what I usually tell people is take the top 4 scores. And I don't care if there's a 10-point gap in between the top and the second one. Don't assume that those numbers mean anything. Because I've had people that were mistyped as 1 and 11 points down was their actual type. Taking the top 4, really looking at the motives of those 4 types, the motives, not the behaviors, not the stereotypes, not the memes, the motives. And I really want you to kind of reverse engineer. The motive of everything I do is really linked to one thing. And if you think about your family life or your business life or your parenting life, if you're a parent, your health, the way that you operate with your health and food stuff, what motivates that? The other way that you can do that, and then take your time with it. Don't try to rush this process. If you're going to go this solo, please, it's going to take a level of radical honesty. It's going to take you looking back at parts of your life that are painful, which most of us really don't want to. But that's what's required for you to really move into the growth and transformation that you desire. You have to disrupt your life a little bit in order for that to happen. If you're not willing to do that, well, congratulations, you're going to stay stuck. The other option is you find somebody like me that can see all your blind spots, that can ask the questions that maybe you wouldn't know to ask yourself, or you're afraid to ask yourself because then you'd have to speak truth to yourself. And that's kind of hard, because once we know better, we got to do better. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a shame spiral because we know we should be doing more. Well, so that's usually what I tell people to do.
Yeah. So, and let's go off of that, because, most of the people who are listening to this podcast, they believe in personal development. Otherwise I wouldn't be listening to a podcast, but it's obviously more focused on, their nutrition behaviors and their habits. And, maybe they know they need to work out, but don't have the motivation to work out, or they know to eat, need to eat better, but they're not doing it, or whatever it is. I think very often people will beat themselves up. So it's like, the awareness is the first step, but then sometimes we have the awareness and we still don't follow through. So can you speak to how knowing what your Enneagram number is, and how that can potentially help you to motivate you to follow through on all the things that you say that you want to do in regards to your health?
Yeah, the reason people do love the Enneagram is like, wow, it gets me. Like, I get, like, this is awesome, because a lot of times we're buried under so much crap. We don't even know who we are. If you'd asked me 10 years ago what I used to be like as a kid or what I did for fun, I couldn't have told you, because I buried it with so many things to protect myself. And so the Enneagram, and understanding your Enneagram type, yes, is just the first step of awareness. Like, but then you got to do something about it. And the problem is we live in a time that we want instant results. We're like, give me the strategy I have awareness that there's a problem, that this isn't serving me anymore, and I don't want to be in shame about it. So give me the action so I don't have to keep playing in the shame circus here. Right. And we go from awareness. I mean, the best marketers and copywriters know how to write to this. It's like, this is your problem. This is your pain point. And here's the 3 quick steps to fix it. Yeah. I know you deal with this all the time with health.
Yeah. It makes me cringe.
Exactly. But so many of us, I mean, I'm guilty. Once I know there's a freaking problem, just tell me how to fucking fix it.
Like, oh no, yeah, 100%. I'm there with it. But 100%.
Give me the action, but it doesn't, like, you can take the action, and you might have, just like the diet industry, you do something for about 2-3 weeks, you're going to have some results, but they won't be sustainable. And you're going to end up 10 steps back.
Yep.
If you don't acknowledge.
Yep.
We have awareness, and so many want to skip and bypass the acknowledgement part, because in the acknowledgement part is where there's pain, where there's regret, where there's shame, and where there's our part of the story. So even though I grew up in a home that I never deserved to be in, you did too. Many of us have had experiences happen to us that we were innocent in, that we didn't ask for, that we didn't deserve. But we have a part in how we let that control us moving forward, especially for adults. And if you're listening to this, I'm guessing you're an adult. I could have used, and I did, the fact that I had a mom who couldn't show up, and a dad that was an alcoholic, and a sister that I had to take care of from the age I was 4. I used that as a power tripping, like, you don't know who I am. You don't know what I've been through. And it blocked every blessing I desired. It wasn't until I acknowledged, like, okay, I have a part in this. I have used that as a wall, as a crutch, as a protective mechanism. And yeah, it keeps me safe behind this wall, but it's also robbing me of the abundance and gifts that I desire: connection, love, money, prosperity, health, all those things. And so you have to be able to look in the mirror and own your part of the story. And nobody wants to do that because it's painful.
Yeah.
And really using the framework. And that's why not just your main type and understanding that is important, but knowing there's 4 other Enneagram types tied to you between your wings and your growth and stress numbers. You can understand the whole beautiful dynamic of who you are and have like, that's why I did that when I was a kid. That's why I did that when I was a kid. And the other part of this that really has helped me and also allowed me to pull up that little girl in me that I didn't know what I like to do for fun is, when you start to look at yourself with compassion, there's a little child in each of us that learned, like I said earlier, a belief system around some unspoken rules or some spoken rules that happened in our environment. And whenever we try to grow, that kid in us is going, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what happens if we do that? You know what happens if we dream big? We get crushed, we get hurt, we get betrayed. You know what happens if we care about other people? They will annihilate our heart. And that little kid in us is trying to keep us safe based on what they knew. And when I understood the Enneagram, all of a sudden there was this little T in me. I call her little T. And she'd never been asked what she felt about anything. And if she was, she would kind of figure out what was the answer to keep her safe and appearing strong. And so it was this consistent, like, opening up to her, because she'd been stuffed down in a prison for a very long time. And she never had the ability or the space allowed for her to express herself the way that she was always designed to. And no matter what you grew up with, you don't need those parents that did the best they could, I'm sure, to heal. The most important child you will ever raise, if you choose to have kids or not, is the one inside of you. And what this work did and understanding the Enneagram, it's more than fun, cool memes and a party trick. Let me tell you, this unlocked and unleashed little T in a way that she could be the free spirit she always was. And when you unlock that free spirited child in you, guess what? Creativity flows, abundance flows in. You show up in your business, in your homes authentically. You don't have to keep putting on these masks to keep the peace or whatever the hell you're doing. You're you. And that's something you can do consistently every day once you know who the hell you are.
Yeah.
And when a little child has that freedom, she's not going to try and hold you back through procrastination, self-sabotage, shame, any of the things. So it's really this beautiful journey. And now, like, I'm able to do things that little T didn't think she was allowed to do because her safety was at risk. And so I'm like a 50-year-old child, but with a whole hell of a lot of wisdom and grit today.
I love it.
It's great.
It's amazing.
And you all deserve to shine that light with all the freaking contingencies around it. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. You've said so many great nuggets and quotes. Guys, if you're listening to this, take one of them, screenshot this and quote Tracy, because it's been amazing. But we need to restate what you just said. You said the most important, I don't know exactly how you said it, but the most important child you need to learn how to raise is the one inside you. Like your little child, your inner child inside of you. That is, we all have that responsibility. And oh my God, like that's so true.
And you know what's cool about that? Because I have 2 children. And, I know there's a lot of moms listening right now, and your kids are your life. And I get that. But when we make our kids our life and we don't honor the kid that is inside of us, that little kid inside of us is going to project her crap onto your children that are alive and well. When I leaned into little T, I became 10 times better of a mom. And my kids see me in a different light today. And it's like I have 3 children. It really is. And
amazing.
Is the queen.
So, okay. So since you talked about this, because I also feel like a lot of people probably have heard, or I don't know if you guys just heard me, I accidentally slapped the microphone. I apologize. Like, and maybe if it's not related to Enneagram, although I have a feeling for you it would be, but like, how does one begin to heal or to talk to their inner child? Because it also sounds like weird, right? If someone's like, like, what does that mean? What do I do? Okay, I hear you. Fine, I agree with you. I'll help raise my inner child. Like, how?
But what? Exactly. I love that. Yeah. Like 10 years ago, if I'm listening to this and I'm listening to me, I'm like, GFY, go F yourself. Like, seriously, just bottom line me. Tell me what I need to do. Like, so I really love that you asked that question because, no, this was not on my radar at all. But using the Enneagram, when you have narrowed down your type and if you have had a lot of trauma like I have, you may not remember much of your childhood. Like I can
Mm.
recall a lot now, but when I was 40, I couldn't tell you any of it because it was buried.
Well, you probably
Because
protect it. Your body,
yes,
our body and minds are incredible at protecting us. They are
yeah,
really just absolutely phenomenal at it. And that's it. You didn't have, it didn't, wasn't conscious because your body and mind were protecting you from, you maybe at that time wouldn't have been able to
thousand
deal
percent.
with it or process it.
And I didn't have the right guidance at the time. There's a whole bunch of it, but I believe when the student's ready, the teacher or teachers appear. So
Mm,
congratulations,
mm,
you're getting some education right now that you can choose to do something with, or you can continue to bury it. And
mm,
that's kind of where I was at. It's like, okay, when I looked at the motive of the Enneagram 8, you have to understand that that didn't just show up in my 40-year-old self. That's been going on for 4 decades. And so because I didn't have a lot of memories, the very first thing I do, like my morning meditation isn't like your typical sit on a pillow and say om and all that crap. That's not how I meditate. I do two things, and it's very much connected to that inner child. I ask the divine, whatever you believe in. You could call it God, whatever you believe in. I I'm open to any thoughts, feelings, memories, and emotions to come up that don't serve me or the calling on my life, so that I need to have these come up so that I can step into the greatest good. So God, divine, whatever those are that need to come up, please bring them up. So you're putting that intention out into the world. And then the other thing I do, and I know you'll appreciate this, the second part of this is God, divine. Please guide me in what movement I need to do with this
mm,
body, this vessel of mine, so that I can step into the greatest good, the calling on my life, to move any of these old feelings, thoughts, memories, and emotions out of my body. Because if we don't release this stuff, we're just going to recycle it back into our body, like you said,
yeah.
and it will keep us sick and inflamed.
Yes.
And so between inviting in those thoughts, feelings, memories, emotions, coupled with some kind of movement, sometimes it's water because it's healing, sometimes it's walking, sometimes I'm kickboxing because I've got anger. Sometimes it's, taking a pool noodle and whipping the shit out of things because it's like I got to move that out of my body. We can't just stay in our mindset. We got to do some of the somatic stuff
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the first two things I'm doing. And it's just like any relationship, right? If we just show up once a month and try and access some quality stuff out of that relationship, we're never going to gain any traction in it. That's not how intimacy is built. And
Yeah.
intimacy is into me, you see. And that takes consistency, compassion, and time. And so at first I was like trying to access little T, and she's like, bitch, you just showing up now.
Yeah.
I don't trust you. You've got a
Uh,
scared little kid in you that does not trust that you have her back or his back.
mm-hmm.
And so I had to be gentle. And I just want you to picture, because we can easily go into beating ourselves up. And when I looked at my own children when they were little, and that picture of me as a 4-year old, I would never say those things to that child or one of my own children at that age. But that's what we do every time we annihilate ourselves with thoughts and words.
Totally.
And so I knew that I had to be gentle with me, and that meant slowing down sometimes to be able to speed up at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to slow down.
Yeah, nobody does. Nobody
But
does.
but
I
in
say that a
order
lot,
to,
and we're going to
it's
repeat it all the time. All the time. Slow
it's
down to speed up.
it's
Slow
so
down to
important.
speed up.
So when I would like invite those thoughts, things in, I know movement usually brings them to light. And so I have this couch at the end of my bed, and I sit down and grab my running shoes, and I can feel in my body, my nervous system. Check in with your body first, not your head, not even your heart. Check in with what your body's telling you. And now, because I've been consistent with like it's almost like I picture the 4-year-old version of myself sitting down on the couch next to me with these big green eyes looking at me, so happy that she's going to get some quality time, because that's her love language too. And that she knows on this movement, whatever we're going to be doing that we've just invited in, she gets free reign to speak her mind and say whatever she's had to say back 50 years ago that nobody listened to, nobody asked her. And it's almost like this giddy little child, like I get mom and me time.
Mm.
And so we go out and hit the canal, and sure enough, all these thoughts, feelings, memories, emotions come up. And with the framework of the Enneagram, you can navigate what that meant back then change it into a new belief that serves you and the greatest good and the calling that's on your life today, and take action that is effective and compassionate, so you don't have to keep kicking the can down the street and recycling and, repeating these patterns that you don't repair it, you repeat it. And the repair process is all in that little kid in you. So I said start there, like that, every morning. Those are my two intentions: to bring her in, and anything that needs to be addressed, or to exit the building.
Yeah. And I love that you said, yeah, it is consistency, guys. I think the more, it's 5 minutes, but every morning, to sit and I'm gonna, it's no coincidence. I had Joy on the podcast, Joy Harrington. And guys, if you didn't listen to that episode, go listen to it. I have Natalia coming up. And good. You guys are just so incredible at what you do. And I just feel very blessed and fortunate to this is my job. I've been using air quotes because it's just I get to do this. I get to learn from you guys and teach other people through a platform. What? But you guys are just so inspiring, and it's a reminder to me. And so I want you guys to know, whoever's listening, I'm still learning this too. So I'm right there with you. So if you want an accountability buddy when it comes to hey, have you been sitting with your inner child? Message me. I'm not kidding. This is your invitation to, let's connect and let's hold each other accountable, because it does take, any relationship, it takes time and you have to nurture it and sit with it.
Here's a little tip for you, because it's not going to come natural to tap into that inner child at first. Because what happens is you're going to be triggered and you're going to go into autopilot, and you're going to forget about that little kid, and you're going to kick her or him to the curb and beat him up. And then you're going to feel terrible about it. So one of the things that I did early on to remind me, if you had a real living child, you would hopefully not forget about them every day, right? But this one's a little bit different, because it's this child's not right in front of us. So, when I tried to remember back to the first time that I felt that I needed to compromise who I was as a kid, I was 4 years old. And very clearly, the more you invite this in, the more that will come up. So what I encourage you to do, if you feel like this might be challenging and you feel like you won't be consistent, because you won't, and then we don't want you to go down the spiral. I found a picture of myself when I was 4 years old. and it allowed me to look into the eyes of her and see how much pain she was in, even though she was smiling through a lot of it. And it's one thing to have a picture, but if you have it in one place, we're out doing life, and we're going to forget about her. So what I did for 3 years, I had this picture as my lock screen on my phone. So every time our phones never leave us, ever. And so every time I just tapped the screen, whose face showed up, it was her.
Wow.
As a reminder of who's running my show, and who deserves to be loved on like she's never been loved on before. And so with her as my lock screen all the time, I didn't forget her. It's just like setting an alarm in your calendar.
Right.
But there's something about seeing that version of yourself, knowing that's who's running everything, and she's running scared from something, or she's running to prove herself and her worth to somebody. Right. And so when you give her that platform, center stage on your phone, which you probably spend more time with than anything, it really brings her into the focus, and he or she will start to feel that and open up. Just like with any relationship, you have to build that trust first. And when that child feels like you have their back, miracles can happen.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is so good. I feel like we could talk for hours. I am just this is so good. So, all right. I don't want to end, but we do have to be mindful. I want to be mindful of your time. We do have to wrap it up. So let's, where can people find you? And also too, where are you currently, how are you working with people? Because I know that you would go into corporations, I believe, right? So, but you also do one-to-one coaching. Share a little bit more about how someone can work with you, and also just kind of where they can connect and find you.
Yeah. And the Enneagram is the first step, because really, if I'm going to give you a bunch of tools, you want to know you're having a roadmap that makes it easy. Because whenever we start with tools the first time, unless we have somebody teaching us how to use it, it's just like our garage. I love Home Depot and power tools, but if I don't know how to use it, I just have really expensive tools in my garage. And I know some of you have done some programs and gone to events that they're just expensive tools in your garage you don't know how to use, right?
Yeah.
So I really love guiding people in real time through the tools. The Enneagram gives you some of the frameworks so that you don't have to just shove it all in the garage and never touch it again. It really helps you pivot a little bit. So I do individual typing sessions, especially if you want to get it right. Right. The next level is one-on-one coaching, which it's the Enneagram plus a lot of this inner child stuff and my methodology that I've used over 10 years on myself and thousands of other people. It's like the Enneagram and then some. And then I do work with teams, organizations, and families. Like, it's very important when you're working with people. Like, back the old me, I only knew one way to communicate. And if you were an 8, you got it. And if you were a 1 through 7 and a 9, forget about it. Right. And so if you go back to the beginning of the story, when I said I went from 0 to 1 million in 2 years, I was using the framework of the Enneagram in leadership. Nobody knew I wasn't telling people what they are, but I could tell what they were. And when you can speak to their core motives and their fears, you build credibility and trust, and you're able to lead people more effectively. And that's why I was able to take 82 people and turn it into $1 million in 2 years because of the leadership. Think about that in your home and the magic that can happen in your homes when you're speaking to your children. My kids are very different from each other, and neither one of them are an 8. So I needed to learn their languages too. And because I have, the relationship and growth that we've had as a family of 3 has been off the charts. Amazing. Think about teams and organizations in your businesses. How much time is wasted with conflict resolution and energy waste and all this stuff? If you know how to speak to every person in your organization, you're able to bring out the best in them, and they have trust in you, that you actually see them for who they are, not just because you want them to perform. And so working with teams and organizations is like, I freaking love watching the dynamics of a family, of an organization, of a team, so that you guys can thrive in this environment and not just get by or, trudge through it. So you can go to my website at tracyo'malley.com. The work with me section kind of breaks some of it down. If for teams and organizations, you can let me know if that's something you're interested in. I can kind of message you about that. I'm on Instagram at Tracy_O'Malley. I have highlight bubbles on all the types, so you can kind of peek through that.
Oh, cool. Of like what each type is. And that's cool.
I've done some relationship pairings too, like compatibility and how they are great together, and some of the things that may show up with these compatibility partnerships and things like that. I need to do more of that. So more of that.
Well, if you do that, let me know, because my book's coming out soon about the parallels between dieting, dating, and romantic relationships. I feel like knowing the Enneagram, because even as you're talking, I'm like, we could do an eating archetype, like Enneagram quiz or something.
I did for sure.
Yeah. Like there's something here. Yeah. We should do another episode about all that stuff.
Yeah, we should. We need to, because it's very powerful understanding our patterns with food based on our Enneagram type. I did a whole podcast episode on it, but it needs to be refreshed with you for sure.
Yeah. I'm not kidding. We will, once the book is out, and we'll give people time to listen to this one, we'll do a part 2 about specifically in our relationship with food and our relationships with a partner and how that can play. I think that would be a really cool episode. Absolutely. I wanted to have people an intro to what the Enneagram is, and just, I think what you shared is so valuable, and just knowing yourself. And also too, within this, even though we didn't say it directly, I mean, guys, Tracy literally reinvented her entire life and her entire self. And she's always herself, she's always been herself, but she didn't allow her circumstances to hold her back. And she literally just recreated an entire life that if you met her, you would never know all the stuff that she unfortunately had to go through.
At 40. I did it at 40 years.
At 40. Yeah. Which no, literally, it's never too late. It's why people make fun of me, but I'm obsessed with shows like America's Got Talent, because I just constantly see people who are older than they're going after their dreams. And I'm just like, you guys are incredible. I love it, because it's so true. You could do whatever you want to do. You need the support. You need the tools, and you have to either start with the belief or work until you believe.
Or borrow mine until you can have
mine. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Okay, so repeat where people can find you.
Go to tracyo'malley.com, the work with me section. I hate my website, but it'll do for now.
It's beautiful. I took a peek before, because I'm going to put it in the show notes. No, it's beautiful. Don't worry. Jim's helping me read you mine right now.
I need
it needs some help. It needs to be new. I feel like a website is like a home,
I
Like you're
know.
always like, once you finish like one room, you go through all the rooms and then you have to start over, 7 years pass and it's like, okay, let's do the bathroom over again.
Well, and you think about like I'm on Tracy 6.0 at this point, and I think my website's like Tracy 4.0, which was amazing then,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's just,
Exactly.
yeah, it needs a
Yeah.
little refresh,
Same.
but
No, I'm,
it's
yeah.
effective. Go there, check it
Yeah.
out. Or if you have questions, you can just DM me on Instagram.
Yeah.
I know
I'll
that
put
this
both
might
of
be
those links.
scary. It's scary to raise your hand and say, you know what, I need help.
Yeah,
I like
definitely.
to operate like a lone wolf. And the most courageous thing I ever did was saying I need help in real
Totally.
time.
Look how it
And
shifted your whole life.
everything changed.
Everything changed when you decided to get help.
Everything. And humbled
Literally.
myself enough to say, I can't do this by myself. And yes, you might disappoint me. And yes, you might you might betray me. But what is the best that could happen if
Mm-hmm.
I actually
Mm-hmm.
lean in and,
Mm-hmm.
financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically? I mean, I'm at
Mm-hmm.
the best health of my life at 50 years old almost. So
Amazing.
it's a great,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So awesome. Yeah. So guys, I will put the links in the show notes. You can connect with Tracy. Please don't be shy. Reach out to her, ask questions. She is incredible at what she does. She really is an expert in this area and in this field. So go ask questions. If you found this helpful, please take a screenshot of the episode, tag me, tag Tracy on Instagram. Let us know your takeaways. There are so many great nuggets in there. So pick your best one, share it, share this with a friend. Just get this message out to as many people as possible because it can change someone's life. It truly can change somebody's life. So that's why we're here. So thank you guys for listening. That is it for me today. Thank you so much. I am Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.